The year is 793 AD. Northumbria, a kingdom on the northern fringes of England, enjoys a fragile peace. Life revolves around the rhythms of the land and the steadfast faith of the people. In a small coastal village, Aelfrida lives a simple life. Her days are filled with chores, prayers, and the comforting routine of her community. Not far from Aelfrida's village stands Lindisfarne, a holy island and a beacon of learning. Bishop Herefrith, a man of deep faith and wisdom, oversees the monastery, a sanctuary of peace and knowledge. But this year a shadow falls upon Northumbria. Out of the North Sea, a storm of violence descends. The longships arrive, sleek and menacing, their dragon heads carving through the waves. Aboard one of these ships stands Ragnvald, a Viking warrior, his heart set on plunder and glory. The Vikings, with a ferocity unknown to the peaceful shores of Northumbria, descend upon Lindisfarne. They are merciless and driven by an insatiable desire for wealth. Bishop Herefrith watches in horror as his sanctuary is desecrated, his prayers unanswered in the face of such brutality. His world crumbles around him. The raiders spread beyond Lindisfarne, their hunger for loot leading them to Aelfrida's village. She is caught in the maelstrom, her life forever changed. Ragnvald surveys the destruction. He is a warrior, a leader, but also a pragmatist. He understands that such raids can bring wealth and power, but also resentment and resistance. Aelfrida finds herself a captive aboard the longship, her world reduced to the confines of the dark and cramped hold. The terror of the unknown grips her heart. The dragon ships depart, leaving behind a trail of devastation and despair. The Viking Age has begun, and the shores of Europe will never be the same. Bishop Herefrith, amidst the ruins, vows to rebuild, to preserve the faith, and to protect his people from the storm that has descended upon them. But he knows with a heavy heart that this is only the beginning. The world tilted for Aelfrida as rough hands seized her. The smell of salt and smoke filled her nostrils as she was hauled onto a longship, leaving behind the only life she had ever known. Ragnvald commanded the ship, his eyes scanning the waves. He felt the thrill of the raid coursing through him, the promise of riches and glory urging him onward. The longship, a testament to Norse ingenuity, was more than just a vessel. It was an extension of the Vikings themselves. Its shallow draft allowed them to navigate rivers and coastlines with ease, striking where others could not. Aelfrida huddled amongst the captured goods, the sounds of the Vikings' rough laughter and boisterous songs, a constant reminder of her captivity. Viking society aboard the ship was a microcosm of their world, a strict hierarchy balanced by camaraderie and the constant threat of danger. Each man knew his place, bound by oaths and the pursuit of glory. Ragnvald, though a fierce warrior, was more than just a raider. He yearned for land, for a settlement where his people could thrive, where the stories of their gods were sung and honored. Aelfrida watched as the Vikings argued over the loot, their voices rising in a cacophony of Norse. She realized they had their own system of laws and customs, different but no less structured than her own. The Vikings believed in a pantheon of gods, powerful beings who shaped their world and guided their destinies. Thor, Odin, Freya, their names were invoked in every raid, every battle, every voyage. "You are safe now," Ragnvald said, his voice rough but not unkind. He offered her food, a gesture that surprised her. For now. Aelfrida hesitated, then accepted the food. She had heard stories of Viking cruelty, but Ragnvald's actions seemed to defy them. Still, she remained wary, her Christian faith her only solace. After days at sea, The coast of Norway appeared on the horizon. A land of stark beauty and fierce independence, it was the heartland of the Viking world. As the longship glided into the harbor, Aelfrida gazed at the Viking settlement, her heart pounding in her chest. This was a new world, a world of warriors and gods, a world that would forever change her life. The air in the longhouse hung thick with the scent of wood smoke and roasted meat. Life in the Viking settlement was a tapestry woven with threads of feasting, crafting, and the constant preparation for the next voyage. Winter was approaching, a time for mending nets and sharpening axes. Aelfrida, ripped from her familiar world, felt like a fragile leaf caught in a storm. The boisterous celebrations and unfamiliar rituals of the Norsemen were a stark contrast to the quiet piety of her Christian upbringing. She clung to the memory of her prayers, a small shield against the overwhelming sense of displacement. Ragnvald watched the Anglo-Saxon woman. He saw not weakness, but a quiet strength in her refusal to abandon her beliefs. He respected courage in all its forms, whether wielded with a sword or hidden within a steadfast heart. The Vikings gathered to honor their gods, Odin, Thor, and Freya. They offered sacrifices and chanted ancient verses, seeking protection and success in the coming year. Their faith was intertwined with the natural world, a force as powerful and unpredictable as the sea itself. Bishop Herefrith surveyed the devastation at Lindisfarne. The desecration of the holy site was a profound wound, not just to the church, but to the very soul of Northumbria. He prayed for guidance, for the strength to protect his flock from the heathen scourge. Herefrith traveled throughout Northumbria, rallying the scattered forces. He urged the nobles to unite, to set aside their petty squabbles and defend their land against the invaders. He reminded them of their duty to God and to their people. Small bands of Anglo-Saxon warriors patrolled the coast, their eyes scanning the horizon for the telltale signs of Viking longships. Fear was a constant companion, but so was a fierce determination to protect their homes and families. Ragnvald knew that more raids were inevitable. The allure of wealth and land was too strong to resist, but he also saw the seeds of a different future, one where trade and diplomacy could replace the clash of steel. Slowly, tentatively, Aelfrida began to find small ways to assert her identity. She shared her skills, teaching the Viking women how to sew and weave finer fabrics. In these small acts of kindness, she found a sliver of hope. Bishop Herefrith, understanding the need to do everything to protect his people, organized regular prayer meetings, asking for divine intervention to drive away the Vikings and restore peace to Northumbria. Ragnvald stared out at the sea, contemplating the shifting tides of fate. The Viking way was changing, evolving. The old gods still held sway, but the whispers of a new faith were growing louder, carried on the winds from the lands they raided. Aelfrida watched the longship disappear over the horizon, wondering if she would ever see her homeland again. She was a prisoner, yes, but also a witness to a clash of cultures, a collision of beliefs that would forever shape the destiny of both Vikings and Anglo-Saxons. The hammer and the cross, destined to be intertwined. The longship sliced through the waves, heading towards the Irish coast. Ragnvald felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, a mixture of anticipation and grim purpose. Today, they raided. Tomorrow, perhaps, they would trade. The Viking way was to seize opportunities wherever they found them. The raid was swift and brutal. Aelfrida huddled against the mast, the screams of the villagers echoing in her ears. She witnessed scenes of unimaginable violence, the clash of steel, the terror in the eyes of the defenders, and the ruthless efficiency of the Viking warriors. This was a stark contrast to the tales she had heard. Ragnvald moved with purpose, ensuring the raid was executed swiftly and efficiently. He knew the line between order and chaos was thin, and it was his responsibility to maintain it. Plunder was the goal, but unnecessary cruelty was not tolerated, at least not under his watch. Humiliated and exhausted, Aelfrida was forced to carry the spoils of the raid. Each step was a testament to her captivity, a bitter reminder of the life she had lost. The silver cross beneath her dress offered little comfort in this moment of despair. Days after the raid, Ragnvald stood on the shores of a different Irish settlement, this time to trade. Silver, furs, and slaves were exchanged for Irish linen, crafted metalwork, and valuable information about the surrounding lands. The Vikings were not just raiders, they were also shrewd merchants, forging connections across vast distances. Aelfrida watched the trade unfold, perplexed by the seemingly contradictory nature of the Vikings. How could they be so brutal one day and so pragmatic the next? She began to understand that their motivations were far more complex than simple plunder. They were driven by a need for resources, land, and power. Back in Northumbria, Bishop Herefrith knelt in prayer, seeking guidance and strength. News of the Viking raids in Ireland had reached him, and he feared for the safety of his own people. He knew he had to do everything in his power to protect his diocese, both spiritually and physically. With a heavy heart, Bishop Herefrith began to negotiate. He penned a letter to a known Viking leader, offering a substantial ransom for the release of captured villagers. He knew it was a gamble, but he was willing to do anything to save his flock. The church's coffers were open, offering silver and precious artifacts in exchange for lives. Ragnvald considered the bishop's offer. The silver was tempting, but the decision was not solely his. He weighed the potential benefits of accepting the ransom against the potential consequences of angering his fellow Vikings. There was honor to be considered, and the complex web of alliances and rivalries that governed their actions. Aelfrida watched Ragnvald closely, trying to discern his intentions. She knew that her fate and the fate of other captives hung in the balance. A sliver of hope flickered within her, mingled with a deep-seated fear. Bishop Herefrith waited with bated breath, his heart filled with a mixture of hope and dread. He prayed for the safe return of his people and for a future where peace might prevail. He would continue to serve his people, protecting them from harm. The exchange was made. A small group of villagers were released, their faces etched with relief. Ragnvald watched them go, then turned his longship towards the open sea. The Vikings sailed on, leaving behind a trail of both destruction and connection, their legacy etched into the shores of medieval Europe. The year is 840 AD. Dublin, a muddy estuary just a few years prior, begins to resemble a permanent settlement. Ragnvald oversees the unloading of timber, essential for building more substantial structures. Aelfrida, once a captive, now navigates the complexities of Dublin. The marketplace is a cacophony of languages and goods, Norse furs, Anglo-Saxon metalwork, and Irish livestock changing hands. Ragnvald understands that raiding alone cannot sustain a settlement. He seeks to establish formal trade routes, engaging in diplomacy with the local Irish chieftains. Agreements, sealed with oaths and gifts, are crucial for the Vikings' survival in this new land. Aelfrida's skills as a weaver are valued in the settlement. Working alongside the Viking women, she slowly begins to learn their language and customs, finding a degree of acceptance within their community. Dublin is becoming a major trading hub, its wharves bustling with activity. Ragnvald takes pride in the settlement's growth, understanding that its prosperity depends on maintaining peaceful relations with its neighbors. Aelfrida cultivates a small garden, a sanctuary amidst the Viking settlement. The act of nurturing life provides her with solace and a connection to her past. Ragnvald emphasizes the importance of peaceful trade, reminding the Vikings that their future in Dublin relies on cooperation, not conquest. Aelfrida listens to the Viking woman's tales, the ancient stories weaving a rich tapestry of gods, heroes, and monsters. She is slowly being integrated into their culture. In an unexpected turn, Ragnvald sanctions the building of a small church in Dublin. It is a gesture of goodwill towards the Irish and a testament to the changing dynamics within the settlement. Aelfrida gazes at the small church, a symbol of her enduring faith in a land far from home. It offers her a sense of continuity with her past life. Dublin's trade routes now stretch across vast distances, connecting it to major commercial centers. Ragnvald understands that the city's survival depends on maintaining these vital links. Aelfrida, once a captive, now finds herself a part of this burgeoning Viking settlement. She is neither fully Anglo-Saxon nor fully Norse, but something new, a product of the clash and convergence of cultures. The Scandinavian winter gripped the land in an icy fist. The fjords, once teeming with life, were now frozen solid. The short days offered little sunlight, and the biting winds howled through the valleys, testing the resilience of every living soul. Inside the longhouse, Aelfrida struggled to adapt to the harsh conditions. The warmth of the fire offered little comfort against the penetrating cold that seeped into her bones. She missed the familiar comforts of her former life, but necessity forced her to learn new ways. As the winter deepened, the community drew closer. Evenings were filled with storytelling, tales of gods and heroes, of brave voyages and fierce battles, were recounted around the fire, binding them together in a shared heritage. Aelfrida, initially an outsider, began to learn the Norse tongue. The guttural sounds were foreign, but she persevered, finding a connection to this new world through its language. An old woman, wise in the lore of the Vikings, patiently guided her. Ragnvald watched Aelfrida's progress with a mixture of curiosity and respect. He saw her resilience, her determination to survive in a world that was not her own. A subtle shift began to occur in their relationship, moving beyond captor and captive. Aelfrida began to participate in the daily life of the settlement, drawing water, helping with cooking, and tending to the animals. Small acts of service, but each one a step towards integration. In Northumbria, Bishop Herefrith faced a different kind of winter. A harsh famine had gripped the land and the people were starving. The church's stores were dwindling, and he struggled to provide for his flock. Desperate villagers besieged the church, begging for food. Herefrith, his heart heavy, could only offer meager rations, knowing it was not enough to sustain them through the winter. Overwhelmed by the suffering around him, Herefrith sought solace in prayer. He pleaded for divine intervention, for an end to the famine, and for strength to guide his people through the darkness. Back in Norway, the Vikings shared what little they had. Ragnvald, despite his warrior exterior, displayed a quiet generosity towards Aelfrida, acknowledging their shared humanity amidst the harsh winter. One night, Aelfrida stood outside the longhouse, captivated by the shimmering northern lights. The celestial display was a reminder of the beauty that could be found even in the most challenging of circumstances. She began to see the world through a different lens, a blend of her Anglo-Saxon faith and the Norse appreciation for the natural world. As the days slowly began to lengthen, a sense of hope filled the air. The worst of the winter was over, and the promise of spring brought with it the possibility of renewal. Aelfrida and Ragnvald stood together, watching the sunrise, their fates intertwined in the unfolding saga of the Viking Age. The year is 870 AD. The lull in Viking raids on the English coast has ended. Drawn by tales of wealth and opportunity, Ragnvald leads his crew once more towards the shores of Northumbria. This time, however, the Anglo-Saxons are not caught unaware. Aelfrida, now returned to her village, witnesses the growing resilience of her people. The raids are met with fierce resistance. The Anglo-Saxon warriors, hardened by previous attacks, defending their homes with newfound resolve. Bishop Herefrith travels between villages, urging local lords to unite against the Norsemen. He seeks to forge alliances, reminding them of their shared faith and heritage and the need to protect their lands. Ragnvald, accustomed to easy victories, finds himself facing a more formidable opponent. The Anglo-Saxon defenses are stronger, their warriors better prepared. He studies their fortifications, seeking a weakness. The clash of cultures intensifies. The shield walls of the Anglo-Saxons meet the Viking charge, the sounds of steel against steel echoing across the land. The battle is fierce, a brutal struggle for survival. Amidst the chaos of battle, Aelfrida tends to the wounded, her faith a source of strength and resilience. She witnesses the brutality of war, but also the courage and selflessness of her people. Bishop Herefrith, witnessing the destruction, prays for guidance and strength. The church, once a beacon of hope, now lies in ruins, a testament to the violence that has engulfed the land. Ragnvald addresses his weary crew. The raids have become more costly, the resistance stronger. He contemplates the changing landscape of England, the growing power of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. In the south, Alfred the Great of Wessex consolidates his power, uniting the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms against the Viking threat. He implements new strategies, building fortified towns and training a standing army. The tide begins to turn. Anglo-Saxon warships, inspired by Viking designs, challenge the Norsemen at sea, forcing them to retreat. The era of easy raids is coming to an end. Aelfrida watches the retreating Viking ships, a sense of relief washing over her. But she knows that the threat may not be gone forever, and that the scars of the Viking Age will long remain. Bishop Herefrith begins the long process of rebuilding his diocese, a symbol of the resilience of the Anglo-Saxon spirit. Though the shores of England have bled, a new era dawns, one of consolidation and resistance. The winds of change swept across the Viking world, carrying not only the scent of salt and distant lands, but also whispers of a new faith. Christianity, once a foreign concept encountered in raided monasteries, began to permeate Viking settlements. Aelfrida, though captive, remained steadfast in her faith. Her quiet devotion and gentle spirit gradually softened the hardened hearts of some within the Viking community. She spoke of forgiveness and love, concepts often foreign to the Norsemen's warrior culture. Ragnvald, ever the pragmatist, listened to the tales of Christian missionaries. He saw the potential for alliances and trade with Christian kingdoms if his people embraced their faith. He also saw how the new faith could provide a sense of unity and order, something often lacking in the decentralized Viking society. Bishop Herefrith, witnessing the gradual conversion of some Vikings, felt a glimmer of hope. He prayed for peace and understanding between his people and the Norsemen, yearning for an end to the raids and bloodshed. Aelfrida's influence on Ragnvald was undeniable. She spoke of her beliefs not with fiery proselytism, but with quiet conviction, planting seeds of doubt in the warrior's mind about the old ways. The integration of Christianity into Viking society was not without its challenges. Old traditions clashed with new beliefs, creating a unique blend of cultures. Some Vikings adopted the new faith wholeheartedly, while others clung to the old gods, creating tension within the community. Bishop Herefrith, cautiously optimistic, welcomed Viking converts into his church. He sought to bridge the gap between the two cultures, hoping to establish a lasting peace through shared faith. Ragnvald, though not fully abandoning the old ways, began to advocate for peaceful coexistence with Christian kingdoms. He saw the potential for trade and prosperity that could be achieved through diplomacy rather than raiding. Aelfrida became a beacon of hope within the Viking settlement. She taught children about Christian values, sowing seeds of peace and understanding for future generations. Trade flourished between Viking settlements and Christian kingdoms. Longships, once symbols of terror, now carried goods and fostered cultural exchange, slowly blurring the lines between the two worlds. Bishop Herefrith and Ragnvald, once adversaries, now stood side by side, witnessing the dawn of a new era. The seeds of peace, sown with patience and understanding, began to sprout, promising a future free from the horrors of the past. The Viking Age was slowly drawing to a close, not with a thunderous clash of swords, but with a quiet assimilation. The Norsemen, once feared raiders, were becoming an integral part of the tapestry of medieval Europe, their legacy forever etched in its history. The year is 876 AD. York, now known as Jorvik, is a Viking stronghold, its strategic location on the river Ouse making it a vital hub for trade and military operations. Ragnvald understands the city's importance. Its defense is paramount to securing Viking dominance in Northumbria. Aelfrida observes the bustling life of Jorvik, a stark contrast to the quiet monastery she once knew. The city is a melting pot of cultures, a blend of Norse and Anglo-Saxon traditions, yet the ever-present threat of conflict casts a shadow over its prosperity. Bishop Herefrith, burdened by the suffering of his people, seeks to negotiate with the Viking leaders. He hopes to find a path to peace, a way to prevent further bloodshed and protect his diocese from the ravages of war. He knows the precariousness of his mission. Ragnvald listens to the bishop's pleas, understanding the desperation in his voice. He acknowledges the suffering of the Anglo-Saxon people, but the strategic importance of Jorvik cannot be ignored. A compromise seems distant, almost impossible. King Ethelred of Wessex and Queen Ethelfled of Mercia, determined to reclaim York for the Anglo-Saxons, amass a formidable army. Their forces converge on the city, a symbol of Viking power, eager to break the Norse hold on Northumbria. Aelfrida is torn between her loyalty to her homeland and her understanding of the Viking way of life. She fears the coming battle, knowing the devastation it will bring to both sides, to the people she knows, whether Norse or Saxon. As the Anglo-Saxon army lays siege to York, Ragnvald prepares his warriors for a desperate defense. He knows the odds are against them, but he is determined to fight for the city he has helped build, for the future of his people in Northumbria. Despite the escalating violence, Bishop Herefrith continues his efforts to negotiate a truce. He ventures onto the battlefield, a symbol of peace in a sea of war, pleading for reason and restraint, but his words are lost in the fury of the fight. The battle for York rages with unrelenting ferocity. Viking axes meet Anglo-Saxon shields, the clash echoing across the landscape. Men fall on both sides, their dreams and ambitions extinguished in the heat of the conflict. The river runs red with the blood of Norsemen and Saxons alike. Ragnvald fights with the courage and skill of a seasoned warrior, his axe a whirlwind of death. He rallies his men, inspiring them to hold their ground against the relentless Anglo-Saxon onslaught. The battle hangs in the balance, neither side willing to yield. Within the city walls, Aelfrid attends to the wounded, both Viking and Anglo-Saxon, her heart heavy with grief. The battle has brought only suffering and destruction, leaving a trail of broken bodies and shattered lives. She sees the futility of the conflict, the shared humanity that binds both sides. The battle for York ends in a bloody stalemate. The Vikings manage to hold the city, but at a terrible cost. The Anglo-Saxons, though repelled, remain a constant threat, their determination to reclaim Northumbria undiminished. The future remains uncertain, shrouded in the fog of war. Aelfrida walks amidst the carnage, her faith shaken, her heart broken. The year is 1066. The great Viking age, once a roaring tide of exploration and conquest, is now a waning wave. Ragnvald, his heart heavy with a sense of foreboding, sails with Harald Hardrada towards England, unaware that this voyage will mark the end of an era. In York, Aelfrida hears the rumors of an impending Viking invasion. Though she has lived among the Norsemen, raised a family, and come to understand their ways, her heart aches for her homeland and its people. She prays for peace, a peace that seems increasingly distant. At Stamford Bridge, the Viking and Anglo-Saxon armies collide. The battle is brutal and decisive. Harald Hardrada falls, and the Viking forces, caught off guard and outnumbered, are routed. The dream of a renewed Norse kingdom in England crumbles amidst the carnage. Ragnvald survives the battle, but his spirit is broken. He witnesses the end of an era, the final stand of the Vikings on English soil. The dream of conquest is dead, replaced by the harsh reality of defeat. With the Viking defeat, York returns to Anglo-Saxon rule. Aelfrida contemplates her future. She has a foot in both worlds, belonging fully to neither. The time has come to make a choice. Bishop Herefrith reflects on the past decades, the constant threat of Viking raids, the loss of life and destruction. The Battle of Stamford Bridge brings a sense of peace, but he knows the Viking influence will forever be etched into the land and its people. Ragnvald, having witnessed the fall of the Viking kingdom in England, chooses to return to Scandinavia. He carries with him the memories of battles fought, friendships forged, and a world forever changed. He embraces the life of a trader, his warrior days behind him. Aelfrida decides to stay in York. She dedicates her life to teaching, preserving the knowledge of both the Anglo-Saxon and Norse cultures, ensuring that the legacy of both peoples will live on in the hearts and minds of future generations. Across the Irish Sea, Dublin continues to thrive as a center of trade and cultural exchange. The Viking influence, though diminished in some areas, remains strong in Ireland, shaping the city's identity and its future. Bishop Herefrith dedicates his final years to documenting the history of the Viking Age, recording the stories of both conflict and cooperation, ensuring that the lessons learned are not forgotten. Centuries later, the legacy of the Vikings lives on. Their impact on language, culture, and maritime technology is evident in modern society. Museums and historical sites stand as testaments to their remarkable journey, reminding us of their courage, their ambition, and their enduring influence on the world. The Viking Age may have ended, but the spirit of exploration and adventure that drove the Norsemen continues to inspire. Their story, a complex tapestry of conquest, trade, and cultural exchange, remains a vital part of European history, forever shaping the course of civilization.